Alright you guys, welcome back into another One Piece discussion video. Today, we are here to talk about Rowanoa Zoro and the 6 potential power-ups he could get by the end of story. So a couple weeks ago, I made this exact same video, but for Usopp, and a lot of people seem to like it. So, that is why we're here today, to talk about the rest of the Straw Hats, starting with Zoro. Alright, so the way this is going to work is that I'm going to start with the most likely upgrades that Zoro is going to get, and then we're going to work our way down to the least likely upgrades. So yeah, the first one is going to be pretty plausible. Number 6 might not be as plausible, pretty much. So, number 1, the first power-up that I think Zoro can get by the end of story would be a black blade. I feel like the idea of Zoro having a blackened blade by the end of the series isn't such a crazy idea, considering the fact that the other 2 world's strongest swordsmen, being Mihawk and Ryuma, are also the only characters in the entire series who have black blades, with Ryuma having Shusui and Mihawk having Yoru. So yeah, in my opinion, once Zoro beats Mihawk and becomes the world's strongest swordsman, I feel like he will have at least one black blade. I'm not too sure if he's going to turn all 3 of his blades into black blades, but I think at the very least, Wado Ichimonji, Kuina's sword, will become blackened. As far as how Zoro is going to do this, I have no clue. We don't know how blackened blades are made. I mean, even the strongest people in the world, like Goldie Roger and Whitebeard, do not have blackened blades, despite both of their blades being supreme grade blades. I've seen people say that just by using your blade a lot and by infusing it with Haki, it will turn black, but that's not the case whatsoever, because in the Road to Laugh-Tale, Oda actually touches on blackened blades a little bit. So Oda himself poses a question that says, can any blade really become a black blade? And Oda's vague response is that many questions still remain unanswered when it comes to blades like Yoru and Shusui. Is Haki alone really enough? I feel like by Oda asking that question, is Haki alone really it? In my opinion, denounces that route. So yeah, I feel like Zoro's gonna need something extra to turn Wado Ichimonji into a black blade. Whether it's love, whether it's victory, whether it's death, I have no clue. You guys let me know. But either way, I think we can all come together and agree that Zoro will have at least one blackened blade. Before we go on to number 2 though, I just gotta say, if I was in the world of One Piece, I would be a menace. I just thought of this, but you know how there's a joke where it's like, hey, you want a blackened blade? Just paint it black. I would no joke do that. You know, just imagine, you could be a swordsmith in a village, you could try selling your swords in the marketplace, and all you do is paint your sword black. Like, hey, buddy, you want to buy my legendary sword? I feel like you could make some hot bucks out of that. I don't know. But anyways, on to number 2. I feel like the second power-up that Zoro could get by the end of story would be unique advanced Haki. I know, it sounds a little bit crazy at first glance, but hear me out. So, in Volume 4 Billion, which is the data book that Oda wrote alongside Film Red, he said that Shanks has a very unique type of Haki that allows him to cancel out other people's observation Haki. Oda revealing this in a mini data book is pretty insane when you really think about it, because after we got this data book, what happened afterwards in the manga is that Shanks showed up to Wano and sent Conqueror's Haki all the way to Green Bull, which was so powerful, Green Bull decided to retreat. This is the first instance of Conqueror's Haki that we have seen where you can just shoot it out like a signal. And then we cut over to Elbaf, where Shanks fights Kid, and he displays future sight Haki so powerful that he can see up to 10 seconds into the future. Shanks, time and time again, has shown us that Haki has no real ceiling, and you can kind of do whatever you want with it, right? I mean, hey, crazy future sight, crazy Conqueror's Wi-Fi Haki, and then he has observation canceling. Like, that is crazy. And here's the thing. I could see Zoro at least getting observation canceling, or at least some variation of it. And the reason why I believe this is because Shanks and Mihawk were once rivals. They used to fight like every other Sunday, according to legend, right? According to what Whitebeard told us, they used to fight pretty damn often. So with that notion in mind, I feel like the reason why Shanks has the ability to cancel observation Haki is solely to combat Mihawk, his former rival, which makes a lot of sense, right? Mihawk is nicknamed Hawkeye. He has very unique eyes, so I wouldn't be surprised if his observation Haki is very, very powerful. And to combat that, Shanks was like, hey, I gotta shut this man down. I gotta stop him from seeing into the future. And hey, if that ends up being the case and Zoro has to face off against Supreme Observation Haki, then Zoro is going to need something to combat that. And what better thing to combat Observation Haki than Observation Cancellation Haki, which I think could definitely use a better name. As silly as it sounds though, I feel like this type of Haki would actually fit Zoro really well because he is the King of Hell, because he's met the Grim Reaper, because Zoro is always willing to throw his life down in a battle. I feel like this could be the mindset you need to cancel out Observation Haki. How can you view the future as someone who is willing to throw away their future to win a battle? Sounds a little bit cheesy, but I think it could work. And here's the thing too, it doesn't have to be this advanced observation cancellation technique, because I do think there's a possibility where this can go a different route and Zoro could just get advanced conquerors or super advanced armament Haki. There's a lot of ways Oda can spin it, but yeah, Zoro expanding his Haki skill set, I feel like is pretty much in the cards. So yeah, that's another safe bet coming in at number 2. And now coming in at number 3, this is where we start to get a little bit wacky. But I do believe that there is a chance that Zoro could master Ashura. Ashura is a really strange technique that Zoro has, and I'm hard-pressed to even call it a technique. It's more of a form than anything else, because he spawns 2 other heads, he spawns 6 other swords, and then he just goes to town on his opponents with a single attack. It's a really strange thing, and I've seen some people saying that this is all in Zoro's head, but that's not the case. Like, multiple characters have commented about how Zoro has a demonic aura about him when he uses Ashura, how they can actually see his extra heads. Zoro himself says 9-sword style. This is by far one of the strangest techniques in One Piece that has just never been explained. But now that we're in the final saga, I feel like it's about time for Oda to flesh this out a little bit more, especially now that we are meeting the Gorosei, especially now that all of the Gorosei have these crazy demonic forms. I feel like it's about time for Zoro's demonic form to be talked about a little bit more. And Vegapunk earlier on in Egghead Island mentioned that the power of imagination is what fuels devil fruits. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ashura could be easily chalked up to Zoro's insane imagination. Maybe Zoro imagines himself as a demon, and that's why he can bring out Ashura. I feel like that's the only plausible explanation to it, but yes, I feel like Zoro could master this form. He might even have a form that's greater than Ashura in the near future. But yeah, I feel like this is not the end of Ashura. We're definitely going to see it more as time goes on. And if you guys have any ideas as to how Zoro can expand his King of Hell demon arsenal, let me know down below. And just bouncing off of Zoro's Ashura for a second, I feel like his King of Hell aura could also be expanded as well. But whenever he activates it, his swords get this ghastly green aura around them, which is somewhat reminiscent of Brook whenever he uses his Devil Fruit to separate his soul from his body. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is alluding to the notion that Zoro can now attack people's souls or their spirits perhaps, which I think would be pretty cool, because outside of the Straw Hats, one of the people that Zoro is actually quite close to would be Perona, and Perona is known for breaking people's wills, for breaking their spirits. So if Zoro were to get some sort of ability in that realm, such as cutting people's spirits or their will to live, I think that would be quite awesome. And hey, who knows how crazy this ability can actually end up being? Since Haki is directly related to willpower and spirits, then I feel like Zoro being able to cut that in general could be a good way of him canceling out other people's Haki, like the point we mentioned previously. And just going back to Brook for a second, but when Brook taps into his Devil Fruit, he's able to summon the chill of the underworld. So I do wonder if Zoro will get a play on that, where his blades will get really frosty, or maybe Zoro will go the opposite route, where he can bring out Hellfire instead. But of course, this whole thing is just a giant stretch. We're not too sure what the King of Hell aura actually does yet. We're just kind of spitballing based on the very vague information we have thus far. So before we talk about the 4th power-up that Zoro can get, let me tell you guys how you can improve your skills on a day-to-day basis by using Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes led by industry pros across film, illustrations, designs, freelance, productivity, and more. It's never too late to learn something new, so why not journey over to Skillshare to take your career, your skill sets, and your side hustles to even greater horizons? If you're not too sure where to start, Skillshare has designed learning paths to help you get from novice to pro in no time whatsoever. Learning paths are hand-picked classes meant to be taken in order that build on one another, reinforcing the lessons that you've learned. No matter what your experience level is, there is a class out there for you, and there are a myriad of classes as well. And another great feature that I forgot to mention is that there's no real cap to how many learning paths you can pick up at once either. You can learn anything and everything whenever you want. The learning path that I'm currently on right now is how to edit eye-catching videos in Final Cut Pro. If you've been wanting to hop into YouTube but you're not too sure how to edit a video quite yet, you could start off on this learning path as a beginner and walk away as a pro. Quite honestly, there's no reason not to get Skillshare, especially since for this video, they have a special offer going on where the first 500 people who click the link down in the description below will get Skillshare for free for 1 month. So why not treat yourself to a brand new skill and learn something new by simply clicking the link in the description down below? Because like I said, the first 500 people who click it will get a 1 month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you so much, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video and being a proud partner of this channel. So now, on to power up number 4. I believe there's a pretty high chance that Zoro can get a new sword and or turn all of his blades into supreme grade blades. I kind of put these two together because I feel like they're one and the same. So first we'll talk about the new sword that Zoro could get. So right now, Zoro has the Wado Ichimonji, he has Enma, and then he also has Nidai Kitetsu. Pretty solid set, right? He's not going to get rid of Enma because that's Odin's blade. He's not going to get rid of the Wado Ichimonji because that's Kuina's blade. But as far as the Nidai Kitetsu, I feel like that's a sword that Zoro could trade up later on. All I gotta say is that V Nasujuro and Zoro are both on Egghead Island. Zoro might take some interest in Nasujuro's blade, and if it just so happens to be Shota Kitetsu, I think we could have a pretty good Zoro matchup in the future. All right, so now time to talk about Zoro potentially upgrading all 3 of his blades into Supreme Grade blades, which is not the same as a black blade, mind you, because there are a lot of Supreme Grade blades that are not blackened, like Whitebeard and like Roger, for example. Supreme Grade blades, but they're not black. I do think there is a chance that Zoro could take all of his swords into that Supreme Grade realm, which I know sounds a little bit weird considering the fact that Zoro's swords are already pre-graded, but hear me out. So, the Wazumono in One Piece actually mirrors the Wazumono in real life, with there being 12 Supreme Grade blades, 21 Owazimono, and then 50 normal graded swords. The world of One Piece and real life follow the same number scheme when it comes to how many graded swords there are. But what's notable about this is that in real life, though, they actually revised the list later down the road, so that at the end of the day, instead of there being 12 Supreme Grade blades, there was actually 15. And I think the exact same thing can happen to the world of One Piece, where we started off with 12 Supreme Grade blades, but after Zoro becomes the world's strongest swordsman, all 3 of his blades, whichever blades he has, whether it's Wado Ichimonji, Enma, Shota Kitetsu, whatever, I think they will all become Supreme Grade blades as well, thus mirroring the real-life Wazimono list. I know that this right here isn't exactly a power-up, but I do think it would be a nice title boost to Zoro's repertoire, right? He could go from a swordsman who has 3 excellent grade blades to 3 supreme grade blades, which would be pretty dang cool. So now, on to the 5th power-up that I believe that Zoro can get by the end of story, but I believe that Zoro will have the ability to see everything and see nothing. Sounds a little bit convoluted, but I will explain it, I promise. I came up with this idea thanks to my conversation with Dax Sake, who is another great One Piece YouTuber. Feel free to check him out down below. But we were talking about Shiryu versus Zoro, because this matchup has been in the books for a long time. Ever since Shiryu joined the Blackbeard Pirates, people knew that Shiryu was most likely going to fight Zoro, right? Swordsman versus swordsman, it's written in the stars. If you have a sword in the world of One Piece, you are pretty much going to be a Zoro victim at the end of the day. That's just how it works, you know, don't blame me, blame Oda. But with the Zoro and Shiryu matchup, I have been very iffy about it, because while Shiryu could be an excellent swordsman, I looked at Shiryu's invisibility devil fruit and I scoffed, right? Shiryu, he could turn invisible, big whoop, right? Sanji beat Absalom on Thriller Bark. Invisibility wasn't exactly anything special. Of course, Shiryu can be better at invisibility, but let's be real, how well will invisibility actually work on Zoro? And this is where I started to ponder a lot. Just thinking about how Shiryu's awakening could look like, thinking about how he could utilize his powers differently. And I think that Shiryu could be pretty busted in certain scenarios, right? Maybe he turns everything invisible. Maybe Shiryu's awakening is like Tosen's Bankai from Bleach, which, you know, spoilers for Bleach, but Tosen, whenever he awakens his sword, he makes it to where other people can't see anything. They can't hear anything, they can't see anything, and they're just put in this ball of nothingness. And once Tosen puts you in that state, he starts walking around you and, you know, slicing you from a bunch of different angles, and you can't really predict where he's coming from. I feel like that sort of fighting style actually falls really well in line with how Shiryu was fighting Garp, right? He stabbed Garp from behind. Whenever he slices people, it's when they least expect it. I feel like Shiryu could have some sort of awakening akin to Tosen's Bankai. But of course, though, I do believe that Shiryu's ability will have some sort of distinction from Tosen's ability from Bleach, mainly because Shiryu is the invisibility man. So maybe he puts Zoro in a transparent ball. Maybe he turns Zoro invisible. Maybe he turns everything around Zoro invisible, and since Zoro always gets lost, he'll start running into buildings. Maybe Zoro will trip on his own feet. We don't really know what that's going to look like. But either way, Zoro will be in a battle where he can't really trust his own eyesight, which brings up the whole eye thing in general, right? Zoro, right now, only has one eye. We don't know what happened to his other eye. It has a scar. Can he open it? Is there an eye underneath it? We have no clue. We don't even know how he lost it. So here's my headcanon. You know, this is my guess. Everybody has their own opinions on this, but I think that Zoro did that to himself. So Zoro got that scar during the 2-year time skip. It was a part of his training. It's either that or Mihawk just bodied him really badly. We're not too sure yet. But personally, I'm leaning onto the side that Zoro losing his eye was somewhat beneficial. You know what they say? It's like an old adage where they're like, hey, when you have 2 eyes, you see too much. Maybe that's the case with Zoro. Maybe he just took in too much information at once, so he said, hey, I'm gonna train my observation haki, I'm gonna try to focus in on one thing at a time, so he scars one eye down. I know this is headcanon, but we're just kind of spitballing here, but I think that when Shiryu turns invisible, instead of opening his second eye to see where Shiryu is at, I think Zoro is gonna go the opposite route. I feel like Zoro might close both of his eyes and he'll just really start sensing everything around him. Whether it's observation haki, whether it's like his fight against Mr. One, where he could hear everything around him, he could hear the sounds of life. I feel like it will be something like that, and that's when we'll get the backstory as to why he closed his eyes. It's kind of like Fujitora, right? Fujitora is blind, but because he's blind, he has this crazy, colorful observation haki going on. I feel like Zoro could get something akin to that as well, where he closes his eyes, his observation haki goes crazy, his hearing goes insano style. I don't know, but yeah, I do want to go the opposite route. Instead of saying Zoro's gonna open his eye and it's some demon eye or something, I think he's just gonna close them and it's gonna be even more badass. So now, on to the final potential upgrade that Zoro could get by the end of story, and honestly, I'm gonna throw this one onto most of the Straw Hats top 6 list, but I do think there is a 0.001% chance that one of Zoro's swords can eat a devil fruit. Devil fruits, in my opinion, are one of the most common power-ups somebody can get. It's probably the easiest anyone can get. All you have to do is camp a tree, hope a devil fruit spawns, eats it, and then call it a day. I feel like Zoro could do just that, but I can't imagine Zoro himself eating it, so maybe instead of Zoro eating it, it's one of his swords, which is actually something Oda talked about in an SBS. Somebody asked Oda what devil fruits the Straw Hats would have if they ate one, and Oda talked about how he would give Zoro's sword Kaido's devil fruit. Obviously, Oda is just having fun with that answer, but I do think there is that 0.001% chance that his sword could eat a devil fruit. It doesn't have to be Kaido's devil fruit, but just a devil fruit in general would be pretty awesome, especially given the fact that we are here on Egghead Island right now, and Vegapunk was the one who found out how to give inanimate objects devil fruits in the first place. So yeah, maybe Vegapunk will tell Zoro about how to infuse a sword with the devil fruit, and then Zoro will do that in the future. Or if Zoro gets a new sword in the future, like the Shoda Kitetsu, for example, maybe that sword already has a devil fruit in it, and Zoro just straight up becomes its master. I'm not too sure, but Zoro having a devil fruit sword would be really interesting, because since we don't have too many use cases for this right now, the first thing I automatically think of is Funk Freed. And Funk Freed is pretty cursed. An elephant popping out of a sword is one of the strangest things I've seen in a minute. But to be fair, Funk Freed was very powerful as well. I mean, when you think about fighting Spandam, you're not worried about fighting Spandam. You're worried about fighting Funk Freed, which is the reason why Nico Robin could not escape Spandam in the first place. So yeah, Zoro getting a Zoan Devil Fruit sword would be really awesome. I just hope that it would fit in with Zoro's character. So if he does get one, hopefully it is Kaido's Devil Fruit. Hopefully it is a tiger of some sort or some other crazy violent animal that fits in with Zoro's fighting style. But yeah, that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out this video. And also thank you to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Again, make sure to check them out down below in the description and or the pinned comment. And I'll catch you guys on the next Straw Hat Power-Up video. I think I'll be tackling Brook next. If there's any other Straw Hats or any other characters you want me to talk about, please let me know down below. And I'll catch you guys later. Signing out.